Hi guys, we're back in After Effects, and in this segment I'm going to show you guys how you can edit the default clips that come with my product, the 38 clips that I've made, and how you can edit those and have them update in all the places they've been used within your structure. So an instance of the clip. So you could go in and you could adapt something, maybe say you want to change a colour and it will update for all of them, or maybe you want to move the lighting, or maybe you want to animate the tumble, which is where it flips and turns and moves around on its own independent way within the animation, so it doesn't affect the mapping. I want to show you how to edit that within my clips, and don't worry, we will get to the custom clips very, very soon. This is all base knowledge that's going to help you create the best things you can create. So we've got here animation 3, and what we want to do is we want to make a change to animation 3 that updates for every animation 3 used in the structure. Now to do that is very simple. All we got to do is double click animation 3. We could do it here, or we could do it up here. So I'm going to double click animation 3. Now if we make a change, by the way, we've got there's a lot more layers here that do all the jiggery pokery in the background, but let's I'll leave the shy layer clicked just so we hide all that, and we can see just the things we're interested in seeing. Now I've got all the lights here selected. If I go back, you can see them up there. Now if I hit double A, you can see the settings for these, and obviously it's lit in red. If I was to change it to, let's say, I don't know, cyan, it will update here, but because this is instance and it's been dragged and dropped into all of them, it will update for all of these. Now something to note is, even though the lighting is directly above this cube that's instanced, every one of these instanced versions of this composition, they refer to it, the lighting, in exactly the same place. So what I'm saying is, above each of these cubes there isn't a spotlight. There is only one spotlight, and it's dead center. And these cubes in each version are being moved left or right or up or down. The lighting doesn't move, the lighting's always here. So just to demonstrate that, I just want to show you guys. If I grab all the lights, holding shift, okay. If I grab all the lights and move them to the far right, you'll see live on my screen, maybe I should zoom in for this, you'll see on my screen that the cube is now going into shadow, see? And this isn't something that's happening individually to the cubes. This is all of them happening at once, all in the same space, even though you can only see one here. So if I go back into this comp, you'll see now the lights are going to be way over here for all of the cubes, not just each of them individually, independently, all of them. Okay, so just to make you guys aware, that's how the lighting works, and it helps set the scene and put all the cubes in the same space, because even though they're being mapped independently, you do want them to feel like, in terms of lighting and shadow and shading, that they all exist in the same plane of existence. Okay, so that's how that works. If you want to change the lighting, absolutely be my guest to move it around, orbit it, change the shadow, darkness, diffusion, the colours, that's all editable. If you want to change animation in this instance of this animation that's obviously being shown everywhere here, if you want to change the animation, just go into nested. This is the element 3D layer. It's always red, by the way, and up here. Now if you want to change this, you can go in and you can find the group that it's on, which is usually always one. It might be on multiple, but you can find the group, and then you can go in and you can animate things in here. So you can change, for instance, the rotation of this cube. So if you want it to, you know what we'll do, we'll change the particle look and the particle rotation, because it works on a decent axis. It's an axis that makes it look like it's tumbling around, which is what I like. So let's say we want to make this cube animate, because at the moment it doesn't actually spin around, it plays back a sequence of frames. It's a ball stuck inside a cloth, and you've got gravity acting upon it, but it doesn't actually move at all. And I want to add that, because some of my animations have this tumbling effect and some don't. So let's show you how we would add that to here. So we'd go, is it the Y? I believe it's the Y axis. Yes it is. So that's the pan, and this one. So you see how now it's orbiting around its local cube axis. So this way is this way, obviously this way goes the other way, and then we've got our pan. In the structure builder, it doesn't orbit in the same way, and that is intentional because it's easier to build structures using that method. In this one, it's better to be able to rotate it on its local axis because it is a cube, so that way you can actually orbit it without having to do some really complex maths. So what we'll do is we're going to make it just spin left and right, and I think we won't even do a full revolution, but what we'll do is we will tell it to spin right once and then left once and then right once and then left once and again, and there's a real cool trick to do that. Let me show you how that works. So if we go Y rotation particle, let's set a keyframe, and then let's go forward 14 frames. So I'm going to hold shift and press page down, that moves 10, and then I'll do it page down, page down, page down, page down. So that's page down on its own is just 1 frame, and shift page down is 10 frames, so I've just moved 14. So with 14 frames ahead, if I click the element layer and I press U, it shows us our keyframes, and because I've already created one on the first frame, you can see it there. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so at the moment it's still doing nothing because we haven't actually changed a parameter. I just clicked the stopwatch. So we're gonna tell it to move now 90-degree rotation on the Y. So it'll go bloop. There we go. So it's rotating over 14 frames, it rotates once. And then what I want it to do is I want it to wait for 14 frames because I don't want it constantly moving. I want my viewers to be able to appreciate it just for a small amount of time. Let's say even 56. Let's go to 56 frames. And if those of you are wondering why such a specific frame, I always work in multiples of 14. So if you wonder why I'm using a specific frame number, it's 14, it's 28, it's 40, it's 56. That's how I like to work. So I'm on frame 56, and I'm going to set another keyframe, but I haven't changed anything. I've just told it to stay at 90. So now it goes from 0, it rotates around to 90, and then it stays on 90, and then that's the end of our animation there. Now what we can do is we can select these and ease them, which is you can use a keyboard shortcut F9, and what that does is it affects the curve. So now it eases in and out of the frames rather than a very harsh motion. It's nice and smooth. Now what we want this to do is we want it to repeat all the way along our timeline. How do we manage to do that? Now if you wanted to, you could select the keys, copy, and then you could try and go forward and animate, but there's no point because look, we're only moving 90 degrees. Okay, so if we were telling it to move 90 degrees again, we would have to go forward another 14 frames, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'd have to tell it to go up to 180, and then we'd have to go to the next integer, the same amount of space, which here, but relative this way, which would put us at frame 112. So that's the same amount of timing, and then we'd have to tell it to stay at 180 here, and then we'd have to just keep doing that, and it's very long and it's laborious, and we don't need to actually do that because we can use an expression. And here's the expression we're going to use. So we have our animation, which goes up to frame 56, and I know 56 fits into 448 because the maths works out. It goes up to 112, then it goes up to 224, 448 is double that. So this is all working in doubles here. So I know this is going to loop now. If no matter where I shimmy my layers left and right, it's going to loop because it's a multiple of 14. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to alt click the stopwatch to add my expression, and I'm going to add an expression that is loop capital O out, and then open bracket and open quotations, and I'm going to tell it to offset with capital O. Okay, now loop out, there's a few different loop out methods. There's offset, there's continue, there's ping pong, and there's cycle. Cycle will do the same thing again and again and again, but because this ends on 90 degrees and starts from 0, we don't want it to cycle because it will suddenly jump. It will get to the end and then it will jump back to 0. What offset does is it knows it's from here to here it's moved 90, and I'm just telling it do the same thing again but do it another 90 degrees and then do it another 90. So now it's just going to keep spinning forever and ever and ever that way. That's what I want it to do. So if we jump back into configure And I know I'm getting a little bit technical, guys, but I do want you guys to have all this knowledge, because it's animation gold dust, as they say. Okay, so now all of our cubes animate. And I'm just getting 56 frames here in the cache, in the work area. And if we were to play that back, let's drop the resolution right down. If we were to play that back, you'll see that they're all spinning now, and because they're all offset here in time, they're all going to spin at different times, which is quite a nice look. Now, if you want it to be more succinct, you could line these offsets up so they're at 40. You know, two of them are moving together, or maybe they're moving left to right. So you could check out the numbers, and you could offset them. So this one goes first, then this one, then this one, then this one. You could do it like that. You could do it inwards, outwards. You can do a ton of different looks of it. But merely what I'm showing you within this tutorial is how you can add tumbling and rotating to these cubes and not affect the mapping at all. The mapping doesn't change. Even though these cubes are spinning, they're not changing here. This is always the same, the pan and tilt. The pan and tilt should not be animated. This is how you set your structure. Unless your structure in the real life is moving, these shouldn't move. Your structure in real life is static, hopefully, unless there's an earthquake, so these should be too. If you're going to animate, if you're going to move your animations, you want to do it inside the clips. It's sub-object animation. Okay, so that's what we've just done in this tutorial, sub-object animation, or tumbling as I like to call it. And I'm very impatient to let this load, but we will jump ahead and I'll show you what that looks like when it's loaded. Okay, so here you can see I've loaded up just a little segment of what this looks like. Obviously it doesn't loop because I've just loaded a tiny bit of work area here to save some time. But now our cubes are rotating in completely different directions. Now you may wonder, why are some of them moving left to right and others moving right to left? It's because, remember, we flipped the tilt. Some of them are completely upside down in a sense. Their front face is now on the back and their back face is on the front. So that is a nifty trick, by the way, for you guys. If you've got a symmetric design like this and you want the whole left side to be moving clockwise and then the whole right side to be moving counterclockwise, that is a potential way you could do it. You could have all of these ones set to 45, and then from whichever number it refers to, all these ones here where my cursor is, you could have all those flipped at 225, and that would then reverse the direction of the rotations. Okay, so we're going to move swiftly on. I've shown you how you can animate something that didn't have animation previously, so it now orbits and tumbles within the clip. What if of course I've explained to you, I haven't quite shown you, but I've also explained to you how you can reverse that direction. If you wanted to, you could make new custom clips, which I'm going to show you in a second, but what I want to do first is just show you one more thing. Here you can see these are the back-facing references. This is not something that needs to be played with, but this is something that is figuring out the normals in the background and the mapping. And as you can see, no matter how this cube animation rotates, it's always going to keep its pan and tilt from the master composition, which is here. So it doesn't matter how you tumble these clips within the clip itself, the sub-rotations, it doesn't affect the mapping. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate for you here and illustrate. You can see how this wireframe cube that figures out the mapping doesn't actually rotate with it. That's because it's a separate entity. Okay, so that's that explained. Now, what we want to do, because I've been hinting at it, is we want to create duplicates of this clip. So, how do you do that? What we're going to do is we're going to introduce you guys to custom clips. Now, not the new customizable, adding your own logo and adding your own 3D model, but your own user customized cubes, which has just beautifully appeared there because I added it a few minutes ago. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to have all of these cloth animation 3s blue like this, but I want some of them to be red as well, and they were originally red. So how do I have two of the same thing, two different versions of the same thing instanced in my structure? What you do is, let's for argument's sake leave this as blue. Let's, in fact no, let's not. let's change the lighting back to red. There we go, put it back to red as it was originally. The only thing different now is that it tumbles around and orbits, but that's fine by me. Okay, so we've got our original clip, let's say. Now let's find it in our project panel, and you can do that by just going down to the DJVB included cubes, finding the clip, which is animation 3. Now this is how you make your own versions of my clips. You just quickly go Control C and Control V, and now you have copied it. It's not a duplicate anymore, it's a copy. There's two different things. If you were to Control D and duplicate it, it would still carry the same lighting and everything else as this version. That's not what we want. We want a completely new copy. So I've done Control C, Control V, and there it is there. Now see how it automatically renames itself, and it's added a sequential numbering to the end, which obviously isn't correct. So we'll put that back to 1080, how it's supposed to be, but we do need to make sure we change the name. Okay, because naming is referenced all over most After Effects projects, and we want to make sure it's got a unique name so that the expressions can reference it independently and know that it's something completely different. So it's still animation 3, but what I'm going to just do is add a prefix. I'm going to call it user customized animation 3. And then what I'm going to do, there it is, I'm going to drag it into the user customized cubes. There we go. So in our bank of media, as I showed you, the cube media for 1920 by 1080, we've got all these folders. We've got the stuff I've provided as default, we've got the special cubes for 3D objects and for logos and whatnot, and now we've got your cubes, your versions of my cubes. So now we can drag and drop that into our composition. Let's drop the resolution down to make things a little bit quicker. We can drag and drop it in, and I just want to get a little ID on what cube is what, so it can help me know where to drop it. So when our numbers show up any second, there we go, I want it to be almost like a line up here, diagonal and down, of blue cubes. So I'm going to swap 8, 5, 6, 1, 2 and 9. So I'm going to grab those. So cube 1, cube 2, cube 5, cube 6, cube 8 and cube 9. And I'm going to drag our custom one, holding Alt, remember, onto those cubes. Okay, and you'll see nothing changes, but that's because it still looks the same. We haven't actually changed anything yet. We've replaced it, so there's now two versions of the same thing, but they're both identical still, because we haven't changed anything. So let's go in and change something. So let's now go into that new user customized cube. Here's the difference. They're exactly the same, except one is now blue. So we've got two instances of the same thing, one blue, one red. And that is now updated throughout our stage, as you can see. But all of them are now orbiting, and remember how I mentioned earlier, and I showed you guys how you can add your own orbit and tumble rotations. What if there's an animation I've made for you in the default cubes that has an orbit and tumble, but you don't actually want it there and you want to get rid of it? This is how you do that. So let's say we don't want the blue ones to animate. So we'll go in and we'll hit U, and then we'll just simply delete it. And remember, unless I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Now that there's no keyframes, this expression is trying to loop between keyframes that don't exist. So if you're going to get rid of keyframes, maybe get rid of the expression as well, so it looks pretty, and reset it to 0. So now this cube doesn't tumble, not at all. It's just blue. It animates as before, playing through its baked keyframes, but it doesn't orbit or tumble. This one orbits and tumbles, and it's red. And in its simplest form, that is how you would add or remove animation from cubes that I've provided for you. And you can also create unlimited amounts of these cubes. So you could now, if you wanted to, you could Control C and can Control V that one. And as before, we'll rename it. We'll give it the same. It's still 1920 by 1080, but it's user customized animation 3. And this is another version, so we'll call it B. Okay, it doesn't really matter what you name it, it just has to be unique. And you can name after the fact, so now I've got an A and a B, I might as well call the first one A, right? That would be logical. Okay, so now we'll go into B. Let's make this one, I don't know. Now I'm just changing very, you know, very surface, very easy to recognise things for the sake of this tutorial. I'm just changing the colour of the lights, to be perfectly honest. But you can change, you know, almost any parameter in here. You could give it some noise evolution, you could do whatever you want. And I'm assuming, of course, that the people that have bought and want to use this product have a little bit of knowledge about Element 3D. If you don't, I'm going to be linking to an awful lot of training that's completely free, obviously, by the producers of that plugin. It's a great plugin, it's by videocopilot.net. And he provides a ton of free training for you, so I don't really need to train you in it, which is great, it's handy for me. So let's switch cube 4 and 3 and make those yellow. So we'll grab cube 4, cube 3, and we'll put animation B. And there you have it, guys. We've now got 3 versions of the same thing, and they're all different, but they're all instances. So if I change cube 4, it's going to do the same thing for cube 3. And likewise, all the blue cubes and all the red cubes, they're all the same as each other, but not the same as the other colours. And I believe that kind of sums this up. Cool, so thank you guys. We're going to go on to the next segment in a moment, and I'll see you in it.